Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Adriel Boals of Hobnob Games. This is the sixth tutorial of our beginner series, and today we're going to be talking about 3-betting pocket jacks. As always, you can find us at hobnob.games. So in our last tutorial, we talked about hands that we should be 3-betting with, and specifically, we determined that pocket aces, pocket kings, pocket queens, and ace king, that these hands are so strong that if someone raises before us, we should re-raise them or 3-bet with these hands. But what about the next strongest hand, which would be pocket jacks? Should we be 3-betting with pocket jacks or not? Well, pocket jacks is probably one of the most controversial hands in all of poker. And I should actually alter that by saying pocket jacks are controversial amongst amateur players. Professional players, they know exactly what to do with pocket jacks, and that's what we're going to be talking about here today. But amateur players are oftentimes scared of pocket jacks. It's because they know it's a strong hand, but they don't know quite what to do with pocket jacks. What if I have pocket jacks and then the flop comes with an ace or a king or a queen, and then they're stuck and they don't know what to do? In fact, I've heard some players say that there are 3 ways to play pocket jacks, and all 3 ways are wrong. If I ever hear a player say this, I immediately know this is an amateur player. Player does not know what to do with a controversial hand. So if the answer to how to play pocket jacks was straightforward and easy, then even amateur players would figure it out and it wouldn't be such a controversial hand. So it turns out that the answer of how to play them, it's a little bit complicated because the answer is it depends. There's no one right way to play it. You have to consider multiple factors. So let's go over those factors together. So 3-betting, when should we be 3-betting or re-raising when we have pocket jacks? Well, there's a number of very important things to consider. One would be the original raiser, the person who just raised, or at least the first person who raised the pot. What do we think of that person's hand? Is this someone who only raises with very, very strong hands? Maybe only raises if they have something like pocket aces, pocket kings. If you've ever seen a player just call with pocket queens, then that's the type of player we're talking about. That means they're only raising with really strong hands. And so if they've raised, there's a good chance that their hand is stronger ahead of your pocket jacks. But if you think that the original raiser has a wider range with that they will raise with a very wide range of hands, including many hands that are worse than pocket jacks, that means we're probably ahead of them. Remember, pocket jacks is the 5th strongest hand in poker. You're usually ahead of whatever someone else raised with. So more times than not, we want to be 3-betting with them. A second thing to consider is how deep are the stacks right now? Are the stacks fairly shallow? If the stacks are shallow, that's going to encourage us to be more likely to want to 3-bet pocket jacks. That's because at some point you want to be able to get all in with pocket jacks. If stacks are very deep, it's hard to get all in and have one pair be the best hand. So here, if stacks are relatively shallow, that means it's not a whole lot more money to get all in, and you oftentimes can get worse hands than pocket jacks to get all in with you. So for example, if someone has ace 10 and the flop comes 10 high and their stacks are not very deep, you can probably get this player to go all in with their hand and get their entire stack. Another factor to consider is this a table where there's been lots of times where 3+ players are seeing flops? If that's the case, that means that players are seeing flops with fairly weak hands. You know, think about the opposite of this. If players are only seeing flops, if they have premium hands like pocket aces or pocket kings, then you're going to see like 1 or 2 players at the most seeing flops. But if you see 3, 4, and 5 players regularly seeing flops at this table, that means people are, if they have jack 10 offsuit, then they're going to see a flop. And pocket jacks is ahead of this hand. So if you're ahead of them, you want to be re-raising their hands. Another thing to consider is, do you have a losing image? We'll probably spend an entire tutorial on table image later down the road. But basically, if you've been losing, then players just aren't afraid of you. You don't command fear from your players, which means that they're going to call you with some relatively weak hands. Well, if you have pocket jacks, that's good for you, and you want to get value from that. So you want to go ahead and re-raise them with pocket jacks. So if you've been losing, they'll be more likely to call you with weaker hands. Another consideration is your position. If you are out of position, that's a bit of a disadvantage. And again, we'll probably spend an entire tutorial in the future just talking about position. But for right now, just kind of know that if you're out of position, it puts you at a disadvantage. You can neutralize this disadvantage if you can get all in fairly easy. And you can get all in a whole lot easier if you 3-bet pre-flop. And one of the final considerations is the table not really folding the 3-bets a lot? Is this one of those wild and crazy tables where people are raising and re-raising a lot pre-flop, and everyone knows that everyone's re-raising and 3-betting with fairly weak hands, so they're calling with a wide variety of hands? If that's the case, you have a premium hand, pocket jacks. So get value from that. Go ahead. This will make me want to be more likely to 3-bet with my pocket jacks. What about some times where we don't want to 3-bet pocket jacks? Maybe we just want to call the raise with our jacks. You know, more times than not, I think we're going to 3-bet, but a few times where we might want to consider some things like, does the original raiser have a premium range? Meaning it's the super old guy who's very conservative, who only raises when they have pocket aces or pocket kings. If that's the case, you're probably not ahead of this person with your pocket jacks, and you might want to consider just calling and then proceeding very cautiously. Another one is if stacks are deep, kind of the opposite scenario where we said if stacks are shallow, we'd be encouraged to be more likely to 3-bet. If stacks are deep, we might want to just call with pocket jacks. Another one is if you're in position. So if you're in position, then you have a lot more final say over how large the pot is ultimately going to be. And so if you have pocket jacks, that's going to give you a particular advantage. And then the fourth factor I would consider is, you know, I found a very conservative table, a table where people are only playing premium hands and they're folding hands like, because really we want hands like pocket 9s and pocket 10s. We want them to stay in the hand because we have them crushed and we don't want to scare them off. So I'm just calling with pocket jacks on a conservative table, not because I'm afraid to play this hand, but just because I don't want to scare off the weaker hands. So what's next? In our next tutorial, we'll be talking about like, why do we 3-bet? So now in these last tutorials, we've talked about like which hands we should be 3-betting with. So now that you know what to do, I think it's important to understand why we're 3-betting with these hands. So we will cover that topic in our next tutorial. As always, you can go to hobnob.games where you can find this tutorial and all of our tutorials, along with download our poker app and play in our live poker games. I'll see you next time.